For Krima Media's Polity, I'm SoNA Dlamini. Archbishop Thabo Makgoba discusses South African politics. So, Archbishop, what do you think our President Cyril Ramaphosa should say in his State of the Nation address?
I'm a person of hope. I think he should strike a note of hope because hopelessness begets negativity, and then we just say this country is free for all and we do as we please. And the second thing is I'm quite concerned about the judiciary, particularly the judges, being attacked. And I hope he will draw a line on the sand and say hands off from the judges, because if he does so, the judges will be confident about what they do, and we will also be confident about this democratic or constitutional democracy.
And recently you've called this year, 2020, as the year where we should be seeing people wearing orange jumpsuits. Yes. Can you tell us about that campaign?
I know, coming from an archbishop, it sounds very vindictive, But when I weigh the facts based on the Zondo Commission, how much, the quantum of money that has been stolen from the poor. I go back home in Tlabine, in Limpopo, and I see that this democratic dispensation, or the dividends of democracy, are zero to those. Yet a small connected elite has put its fingers into the fiscus and has nearly made this country bankrupt. I think there should be consequences for ill behavior. That's my call.
And it's been 30 years since a former statesman or struggle icon Nelson Mandela came out of jail. You've prayed with Madiba. We've read it in your book in the last years of his life. What do you think Tata would say about the current state of our country?
Probably he's turning in his grave because one thing that Madiba was clear about was almost a biblical injunction: the truth will set you free. He would have said to those that have put their hands in the till and are wanting to cover up and are threatening judges, no, just let democracy flourish. Just let this constitutional democracy flourish. Let the rule of law flourish. And he would probably have waved his finger, almost similar to what we know in apartheid, of those that wave their fingers to say, come on, let the focus be about serving. Let the focus be about the poorest of the poor, rather than enriching ourselves.
In the past, you've defended Public Protector Thulima Donzela when she wrote those reports, especially against the former President Jacob Zuma and his Nkandla estate. Now, there are calls for the current Public Protector, Bosisiwe Mkhwebane, to be removed for misconduct. What is your view on the matter?
I protected Thuli. I mean, I like the flowers because we made a non-violent gesture then, and we stood at the steps of the cathedral and we held roses and we said, a flower for Thuli. And we were capturing the beauty of a flower, but the fact that a flower, if not nurtured, can die. Thuli was raising important principles that led to the State Capture Commission, the Zondo Commission now. And I think in terms of Ms. Mkhwebane, or Advocate Mkhwebane, the matters that have come to the public space don't resonate that well with, I think, where the rubber is hitting the road and where people are wrestling with. And maybe she may be misunderstood. And I don't know the nitty-gritties of recalling a public protector, whether it's a political move or not, or whether she's starting to put her finger onto what matters. But I hope that whatever process they take, it will be legitimate, it will be transparent, it will be respectful, and it won't be for political gain in order to hide something.
And what do you make of threats now from the EFF to disrupt SoNA?
I've attended a couple of SoNAs, and to my horror and disgust, when you sit there and have the whole world, and you are there sitting, watching SoNA, and they are toying, your heart sinks. But there's also another element to that. I mean, when the judges come in, they sit down respectfully. There's a point there that in the past they were highlighting their dis-ease about an administration that was said to be corrupt, and affirming a body that was perceived as not corrupt. I finish the Synod of Bishops tomorrow, and God willing, and if South African Airways doesn't delay, I will be at SoNA tomorrow evening. So I hope the disruption, the point will be made, and that they will consider the nation also in terms of, we want to hear that message of hope. We want to hear the president, just giving some direction about where the country ought to be going.
And many South Africans, Bishop, are losing hope. As you've said, going back to Limpopo, you also see the same. Is there any way that you can advise us as to how to keep up hope?
I want us to divorce hope from material gains. I want us to divorce hope from comparing ourselves with the others, because hope must be hope for its own sake. At the age of 17, when I didn't have a DOM pass, I was chased by the police, and they arrested me in Ward Street and took me to number 4. And I had to convince the judge that I'm not yet of a DOM pass carrying age. And I spent the whole day there, and I felt I was being punished for being taller than the rest of the 17-year-olds. But because I had an identity, because we had a narrative that South Africa will be okay and South Africa must be okay, that motivated us not to lose hope. And I want to say to South Africans, South Africa must work, and it can't just work on itself. We have to be partakers of making South Africa work, and that is the basis for hope. We can't be looking for jobs. We must create jobs. We must sell magwinya. We must do little garden patches in our tiny little homes. We must challenge the mining companies not to mechanize, because this is not a first world country. We need to go back into what does industrialization look like for a country like South Africa with such a high unemployment rate? So hope can be inculcated by all of us, poor, rich, employed, unemployed, those that can generate jobs, those that seek jobs. So it's a collaborative effort. But for our own sake, if we lose hope, we're just going to beat each other. I don't want to sound like a pessimist and use the example of the Hutus and the Tutsis, where people started now hacking each other. But if we lose hope, we're going to see each other as cockroaches, and we are not. We are beautiful people of this beautiful country, and we must make this country work.
And lastly, your daughter has also questioned what is happening in the country. If you may talk to the youth of our country, what can you say?
I'll say to the youth of our country, like I have these very difficult conversations with my daughter, who sometimes doesn't share the perspective from where I come from. But to the youth of our country and to my daughter, I want to say, we know the challenges that you're going through. We know the decisions that you have to make. We know the addictions that you have to go through. We know the competition. We know the stress. We know the unemployment. We know that there's an elite that is creating inequality in South Africa and really creating an unsustainable environment. But I want to say to them, don't ask for permission to create a narrative. Create your narrative, because the narrative now that is stealing is a narrative that we have to compensate those that fought in the liberation movement. But we need to create a liberation of those that stayed, those that are born free, those that want South Africa to work, those that went into multiracial context, those that are worried about the environment, those that can do all sorts of things, those that have to see their colleagues at matric stabbing each other to death. So now the young people ought to say, not in our name. And once they have that, once they have a narrative of the common good, I think the hopelessness will go away. But they have to be involved. They can't wait and blame Mandela for having done this wrong, blame Archbishop Thabo that you guys ought to be fighting more. Can they chip in and do something to make this country a better place?